have been seeing a lot of innovation in the field of AI, and the pace at which it is coming is immense. And that has been begging a question. And this is something which I have been thinking for myself, and even folks who work in my team have been asking me that how do we look at our career, how do we look at our career advancement as these developments are happening? So how do we learn these skills which are coming in the market, and how do we adapt our skills so that we are able to thrive in this immense opportunity that comes ahead of us, right? So what I've done is kind of tried to structure this talk as mostly questions which I have been thinking, and then try to come up with answers. I'll keep some time at the end so that I can take questions from you. So before starting, I wanted to know just a little bit about you so that I can tailor it according to the audience. So how many folks here have data experience between, say, less than 5 years? Just a show of hands. Good. Decent chunk. How many are like between 5 to 10 years of experience? Yep. And yeah, 10 plus folks. Oh. So we have I think good distribution. So I'll try to keep my points to all. Right. So yeah, let me start very briefly about me, and where does these kind of questions come from, right? So I started my career back in 2011. Started as an analyst with Fractal. Over time, have been building data science teams for various startups, broadly trying to kind of solve specific business problems and build teams, mentor folks. And currently working at Nirvana, heading the data science, data engineering team there. And Nirvana is mostly in insurance. We try to look at a lot of IoT data. We try to look at the traditional signals and come up with better risk understanding. That's what we are doing right now. So yeah, let's get into it. So what we want to discuss, right? I think first thing is we have been seeing immense speed in AI. We have been seeing, just last 1 year has been crazy. How does these developments change how we work as a data professional? So I may use the term data science, but right, broadly it applies to data engineer, data analyst, right? So how do we look at these changes and adapt ourselves? And yeah, some of my thoughts on how we should go about and act on it. So in last 1 to 2 years specifically, right, we have seen immense development in LLMs. There has been an exponential growth in AI models, right? We have, if I kind of think of the last waves which have come, right? We can talk about the internet wave, which came towards the end of 90s. Towards 2011, we saw the wave of smartphone and cheap data coming in, and today is actually like the wave which is coming through AI. So if you have to kind of think of what next, or like what major inflection point you'll see in the tech industry, this is it, right? What has been driving this, right? So a lot of things, right? Broadly, we have been seeing very good developments in LLMs. The models have gone from few billion parameters to multi-billion parameters. We are seeing very high advancements in the entire ecosystem. So the data that we are feeding into this model is growing, the chips are improving, and the production capabilities are improving, right? So when ChatGPT came in, the first version came in, the thoughts was, okay, it will broadly act as some Q&A system. We can use it in certain aspects. It may change how broadly search looks like, but now with advancement of the open source, right, with RAGs, with techniques where we are able to productionize them, we are seeing huge impact being done in practical applications of this, right? So, and it's driving the full ecosystem. So that's something which is coming our way, and it changes the way everyone works, right? So what we are going to see is so not just data, right? Broadly, if we think on how anyone in the industry is working, it's going to change. So with say some data which LinkedIn tried to kind of come up with, they ask, how do we think that our skills will be outdated in few years, right? So I think around 65% folks say that we think the skills which we are using currently will be outdated going ahead. In fact, and these numbers are more from, I think, a US and global perspective. With Indian perspective, where we are a lot more in knowledge industry, the changes are going to be much more. And what's been driving this? Like, what's been different about these models or this wave as compared to the earlier ones? What we are seeing now is these models, like the ChatGPT, can automate a lot of repetitive work, right? So, and so very simple things like customer support, these things we are already seeing a lot of these things can be done. What it also brings to the table is it can automate a lot of knowledge work, right? So these are the models who have a distilled view of the knowledge. They have the world knowledge. They have been trained on almost all available internet in English as of now. They are interactive, and the biggest thing is they are continuously improving. So kind of the models we see right now, that's like the worst version of models we'll see. They are going to get better, right? So it's bound to change everything. And that kind of got me to the next question. How does it change the work of a data professional, right? So how does it change the way a data scientist work? And then what can we do to adapt to it and actually get the benefit of this technology, right? So let me talk about what questions come to the mind here, right? The first one which comes is, in this rapidly changing environment, how do you maintain your competitive edge, right? So now competitive edge can be in terms of few things. So the first element is, how do you stay competitive against other individuals? Or if you are like an IC, right? How do you stay competitive? How do you keep up to date with the best techniques which are out there? And this is an environment where techniques are changing every few weeks, right? One thing which will now start coming in as things go is, how do you stay competitive against just a standalone AI system, right? Things will improve. There are already AI coding solutions out in the market, right? So how do you kind of stay competitive overall that you're able to add value? The other question which comes is, how do you basically go about doing continuous learning, right? As these techniques come in, you need to get into a rhythm that you're able to develop your skills, you are able to know about what's the most advanced thing in the market, and then kind of customize it to your career that you are able to get the best outcome out. And some specific questions which come after this is, where do you specialize, right? If you are a data scientist, should I go in AI research? Should I go in LLM applications? Or I kind of continue working on domain-specific problems that I have, right? So where do I kind of build my depth? So these are some questions which come, and I'll try to kind of answer them. So next question which I have actually for the audience, right? So will data science also be disrupted, right? So like, how many of you think that in next 5 years, data science as a field, or like the role data scientist will become extinct? Like, so yeah, by a show of hands, how many of you think we won't need data scientists after 5 years? Cool. Maybe 20%. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, I'll share my thoughts. The word extinct is too extreme, and few years back, I think this has been coming out in Medium, in various discussions, that we won't need data scientists, we won't need data analysts or similar things. So I don't think the answer is like black and white. Broadly, what will happen is the role will evolve, and as AI advances, it will help us augment our skills, right? So the role may stop being called data scientists in future. We may be calling it AI scientist, or different roles may expand. AI analyst role may become much more bigger. Data scientist role may become something else. But yeah, the role or kind of the profession will stay. And in fact, there is an opportunity to kind of go much more broader. Now, why do I say that, right? Why do I say we have been seeing SQL GPT? We have been seeing GitHub Copilot, right? They are getting better at coding. Why do we think, right, that this role will not become extinct, right? So let's go back to like what, as a data scientist, you are supposed to do. Broadly, as a data scientist, anywhere you work, right? Your ask has been to look at the data and create value out of data. Now that value out of data, the output can look in multiple forms, right? It could be a model that you are working on and deploying. It could be an insight which you put and then put it into strategy. It could be like an attribution. It could be something which you kind of get out of data and then put it into action. And that's what has been the ask from data science for some time. And that's what I believe will continue. What will happen is just the tools change, right? The tools change, the techniques change, and the way we work will change. But the ask will remain. And in fact, as more and more companies adopt AI, right, more and more data gets gathered, these questions will become much more prominent. If there are only like the top tech-enabled companies which are asking these questions, more companies will be asking these questions. And what does like a data science process usually look like? Like if I have to kind of distill it to few points, like what you're supposed to do to get value from the data. And broadly what folks do is, and the data scientists are expected to do is, look at the data, critically understand what the business problem has been. And that's so what's the business problem? What's we are trying to solve, right? You then go back and think on, okay, these are the data sets which I can use, and these will help me understand or solve this problem. Then you go into your usual steps, right? You go into your usual steps of exploring hypotheses, applying techniques, looking at results, validating them, and at the end, you get to the outcome, right? Which is broadly like a decision system, or it could be an insight, or it could be an interactive system. But that's what you are doing, and that's what will continue to remain. As we see a lot of developments coming, as we see a lot of models coming in, I think it's definitely important that we stay kind of true to what is expected. And we can go back, right? We can go back and see like how different techniques have evolved over time, right? So if you ask in last 15 to 20 years, what have been like the most important techniques or like the most trending techniques which folks were using to kind of generate value, they've changed over time, right? I think we were kind of working on linear logistic regressions. We were working on, back in, I think 90s is when kind of, we started working a lot more on these, right? I think in 2011s, machine learning kind of took over. We were able to kind of create these black box models which are able to solve these problems better. Rexis kind of took off. That in itself became a very deep field, right? XGBoost and like these efficient trees, they kind of dominated the landscape, right? And now with the increase in data, deep neural networks came in, and now I think it's just going to expand, right? I think I've tried to make a scale. I don't think we should go by the scale, but we'll see more and more techniques. We are at LLM, we have Gemini, we'll have more things going ahead, right? But broadly, the fundamental ask is, how do you use these techniques to kind of get value out of data? So that's what is going to remain the same, that data scientists who are able to understand the full process, right? From understanding the pain points of their business stakeholders, who are able to think on data, like what is the right data that I should be looking at? Is that data has some issues, like what biases can that data have? Then choosing between the right technique, right? Say the most, if you have given like an interview in last 3 to 4 years, like the most important questions being asked in interviews was like, will you apply an XGBoost or will you apply a random forest on this data, right? So broadly what these questions were trying to judge is, do you understand the model at heart? And that's, no one is broadly going to ask you that, can you code XGBoost, can you code this logistic regression from hand? But broadly, like, are you able to understand the model at heart? And I think that's something which is going to continue with the developments it's important that you understand the problem, you understand the data, and you understand the fundamentals of the technique. While you may not be able to like code LLMs from scratch, right? You're not able to say tune it, right? But if you understand, say, in which areas this technique will work better for me, that's going to be the ask even going ahead. But one thing which inherently changes is the speed, and that's that. I think earlier we are seeing some developments every few months, few years. Now I think we are in a space that will see the speed of these new techniques coming up. So it's so what then begs the question is, how do we kind of continue learning? How do we build a schedule? How do we build a system for ourselves that we can continue to learn? And at least some of us will be working at the edge. Some of you will be working at the edge on LLM deployment. You'll be working on LLM tuning. But even if you are not at that area, right? How do you stay relevant in the market? So those are the things then I think we need to ask and then kind of go work towards. How does it impact? So some thoughts on, how does it impact specifically, right? How does it impact the future of the work which we see for data scientists? The next 5 years are going to be AI first, right? So currently, you may be working on problems which are, say, trying to do predictive modeling. You're trying to do some forecasting. What we also see going ahead next is LLM developers, AI engineers. These are some of the kind of the designations which become important, right? So first step is being cognizant that, okay, these are the techniques which will have much more demand. So if in the past 5 years you have seen only 10% of work or projects being allocated to them, you'll see definitely 50 to 60% of work going into this going ahead. There are, in fact, like just catering to like what kind of audience we have. So if you are like a data data scientist or a senior data scientist, you know all about traditional ML. Like it definitely becomes important that you start thinking of adding this skill, right? You start thinking of adding some of these skills to your set. If you are like a team leader, right? If you are working on some of these problems, you may have heard of some problems which you thought were not possible to solve. Now it becomes much easier. So that's where we need to start looking towards. The other thing which changes is how the way we work, right? So while I talked about the process, right? Business problem, coding, iterating, applying techniques, but even the tools which data scientists use is changing, right? And some of the tools are already out there in the market. We'll see them coming up much more. So Copilot, augmented analyst, right? So you'll see, if you are an ML developer, right? You may have been using Python, but I think going ahead, your tools itself may change. So you may start using Copilot. Folks have seen at least say 55%. This is more coming from developers, but I see the models getting much better. And even for data science work, they speed up the outcomes, right? So what does it change for you? What it changes, you spend more time on thinking about the problem. You spend more time of communicating the results. You spend more time of, say, iterating more problems, but some of the first level thinking or first level coding work gets removed. So you'll see these tools taking a first level of coding. You'll see these tools taking a first level of insights. So it becomes important that you are able to kind of solve the problems and use these tools to kind of make your work more efficient, right? You can also be using AI in various steps, right? So you can be using AI to kind of come up with more features. You can be coming it for. So if you are working on an area and you want to think of, you can be using them broadly as a co-pilot, right? So while they will help you write code, they will help you write the first level of analysis, they'll also help you think, right? And that's how a lot of things will change. One thing which then kind of becomes important is some of you will be kind of working in AI development, but how does it work for someone who is kind of not directly working on LLMs or who is not directly working on AI model development, right? So there was a time that broadly, okay, you can do a course and then kind of that makes you a data scientist. I think that has changed completely, right? I think if you are one of an LLM engineer or you're an AI engineer, you are in a good place, right? But if you're not, you need to start dedicating some time so that you don't need to like learn everything about the techniques, but learn the fundamentals, right? Learning the fundamentals is important so that you are able to kind of understand, okay, how can, if asked to, how can I use the LLMs in my production workflows, right? If asked to, how can I use my data and do some RAG applications and build an RAG application and kind of solve my problem better, right? So it's much more important. How do you do it? How do you do it? There's no correct answer for everyone, right? You have different times. If you are in an organization, you see a small problem coming in, I would say volunteer for it, spend extra time on it. If not, do a lot of courses, right? I think as LLM expanding, we are seeing a lot of these practical courses coming up outside, right? So Databricks released one course. We saw some courses from Google, right? And they talk about just the basics, right? How can you just use the APIs, create them in your workflows? They talk about the next level detailing, right? So if you want to understand how LoRa works, right? How does fine-tuning works, right? Theft works, right? So there are now courses out there which are very small, right? So you can understand them. You may not be able to apply them immediately, but it keeps you updated in the field. And it's important to be updated in the field because we'll see the next version of models coming up very fast. So if you're not just continuously looking out for what's there, you can become outdated with this technique, and it becomes much more uphill task later on. And my last advice, or broadly here, is you should try to work on it and code, right? If you are, even if you're not getting an opportunity in work, try to build something personal, right? Try to bring something that you are able to use these techniques and then gain just some momentum, gain some projects under your belt. Going ahead, right? While it's important that you are able to kind of do your work and kind of get outcome from the data, it's also important to kind of learn these and then see how you can personally apply these techniques on any new data set. And yeah, I think that's where kind of like want to kind of talk about the last section, which is while it takes away, right? While it puts a toll on you that you need to learn more techniques, but what are the opportunities going ahead, right? Currently, we have been seeing mostly roles around data science, data analysts, ML engineer, right? What you'll see coming more and more is, first, it opens up a lot of new kind of roles which will be coming out in the market. Indian ecosystem has just started to get money, so we have seen a wave of AI startups coming out of in India, and this is going to continue, right? So you can, depending on your maturity, depending on your kind of will, you could be choosing, okay, I can be working at different levels, and I need to get to that level, right? So if you want to work on foundational models, you need to go very deep into these LLMs. You need to be able to handle the training of this. You need to be able to handle how to work with GPUs, right? So that's like one area of jobs or one area of opportunity it opens, right? The other opportunity is, okay, I don't want to work on foundational models, but what I want to do is, which models are out there, can I build applications out of it? And that's where we are seeing a huge wave coming up in India specifically, right? So how can I use Llama? How can I use ChatGPT and Gemini and create applications? Right? I use them in my workflows. I use them in between to solve my problems. It also opens up different layers on infra and engineering, right? So how do I productionalize these models? How do you basically scale these models? Are you able to handle the challenges which come with some of these APIs, right? So it opens it. And the last, and this is where like a lot of you can start right now, is kind of how can you use it for your own domain, right? So you can supercharge what you're doing right now. And so just to give some examples, right, how you could be doing it. You could be using Copilot to speed up your work. You can be using ChatGPT or any of these new age models to think more or kind of use them as your partner, right? You are working on a model, you want to know about, okay, these are the set of features I have thought of. What can be the more set of features that I can apply? Some areas that say we have started to use LLMs is in data cleaning, right? So we have been seeing a lot of applications, or a lot of our data being not very clean, right? And what we are trying to do is build wrappers so that if I write a data clean code, it can kind of get me to X% version of accuracy. But if I integrate ChatGPT, or if I integrate a Llama API in between, I can give it the context and it helps me cleaning more data, right? So you can be using these applications in your domain and just increasing your work. The key thing to notice is, like, while you may not find all of these models to be very to be performative up to your level, but they are going to improve over time. I think they are at the worst performance currently. Next year they are going to be much more better. So it's important we start including them. And yeah, overall I think definitely it's an exciting time ahead. Some of you folks, right, you're already in this field, you are already at the edge. Some of you folks, as your teams go deeper into AI, you will be leading the transformation, right? So there is a disruption coming, you will be leading that disruption. So that's, and if you're not, right, it's important that you start thinking of how can you get these skills onboarded. We will see much more adoption, we'll see much more advancement. But like as a professional, it's the key takeaway is you have to continue learning. We have like a selection bias, like all of you folks have come to the conference, so definitely you have been thinking on it. But I think it's important that you start allocating time, start thinking on how do you include these techniques, include the latest developments in your day-to-day work. And yeah, that's what I had. Would like to know any questions or any thoughts you have.
Well, I have one question at the front out there. Hi, would you like to introduce yourself and quickly ask a question? We have time for one question only. We'll get you the mic. And just a request to keep the question brief so that there's enough time to answer. It's working. You can give it to him. Take my mic.
Or you can ask, I can repeat the question.
Product manager.
Okay.
AI product manager.
Okay.
So with this new Gen AI, there's a lot of blogs all these companies are putting up. A lot of guys are like prompt engineering guys. What do you think should like one follow and stick with, right? Because every day new stuff is coming. Every day one company is updating, the other company updates on their database.
Yep.
So how do we know and stick with one and follow with one? Yeah, that's my thing.
Yeah.
Rishi, if you can just say the question also, just in interest of everyone.
Yeah, so broad question is that every day, different companies are releasing some blogs, some articles, some courses. How do you kind of stick to one and then try to learn from there, right? What I've been trying to do is kind of keep my sources to few, right? So I definitely look at everything to just understand which techniques are coming up, right? So you could be making a map, okay, there is an RAG technique in the market, there's LoRa, there is QLoRa, broadly, like, I just kind of look at the headers, I don't go deep, and then I try to come up, okay, what are like the good sources. Some of the good sources, like my personal recommendation have been, I found some of the Databricks courses to be good. I have found some of the folks who are in like Google, right? I think Google's generative AI courses have been good. So I've been kind of trying to stick to more mature courses, which are not very long, and then they kind of start from the basics to coding, so that you are able to go through it once, and then you understand it. While the other sources just kind of keep me mentally prepared, okay, there's something coming up. So 2 days back, there was SQL Llama, right? So I know about it. I may not use it right now, but in case there is a use case, I know where to kind of just have it. But if you try to be updated with everything, yeah, definitely you'll get overwhelmed. So just trying to keep fundamentals, okay, fundamentally, this new model has come, this is the advancement, this is how a new practical applications has come, and yeah, trying to kind of get an overview and go deeper in few of the things.